Hello and welcome, beautiful souls, to my podcast Midlife Alabahare, where we embrace the spirit of continuous rebirth and celebrate the wonders of midlife transformations one episode at a time. I am your curious host, Bahare, and I couldn't be more excited to embark on this journey of self-reflection, lifelong learning, healing, authenticity, and acting to continuously elevate our lives from ordinary to extraordinary with you all. If you're in your 40s, 50s, and beyond, or in the midst of a midlife adventure, or simply seeking inspiration from all walks of life to invigorate your soul, join me in this real-life podcast. Hello, beautiful souls. I want to start this episode a little differently. Before we dive in, I just want to take a breath with you. A real one. Right here, right now. So just pause. Inhale. And exhale. Can you feel yourself arrive? Even just a little more fully? Because today's conversation is about something many people carry quietly, sometimes for years, without ever putting words to it. And I want to bring it into the light, not to fix it, but to name it, to honor it, to help you see that you're not alone and you're not lost. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your life, your career, your relationships, your achievements, and thought to yourself, I've done so much, and yet I feel like I'm not really here. Like there is this subtle, persistent fog between who you are and the life you've built. If so, I want you to know something right off the bat. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. And you're not confused. You're simply misaligned. You're living a life that may have once fit, or never did, but now feels too tight, too quiet, too far from your real truth. And that disconnection you feel, it is not random. It is not weakness. It is not because you need to try harder. It is your soul knocking. It is your body whispering. It is your presence waiting for permission to return. Because you can build a beautiful life, a widely successful one, and still feel like a stranger inside it if that life was built on values that were never really yours. Values you inherited, values you absorbed, values you performed to be good, to be enough, to be impressive, but not values that came from your own inner knowing. So this episode is about coming back to yourself, back to what you truly value, back to a kind of presence that doesn't require effort, just the truth. I'm going to walk you through why this disconnection happens, how it shows up in your daily life, and how to begin the sacred work of remembering what's actually yours and letting that lead. And I promise you, this is not going to be about burning your life down or starting over from scratch. It is about listening deeper than you ever have before. So if you're ready, let's begin. So let's go deeper. This disconnection I'm talking about, it is not loud. It doesn't usually show up in a dramatic breakdown or a big life crisis. At least not at first. It is quiet. It is subtle. It is the kind of ache that lives just beneath the surface. You wake up, do the things, go through your day, and from the outside, everything works. You're competent, you're trusted, you're even admired. You're making it all look so easy. And yet inside, you feel distant from your own life. Like you're replaying a role that was written for you by someone else. Like you're watching yourself on stage, hitting your marks, smiling at the right moments, but not really feeling it. It is not depression. It is not anxiety. It is something harder to name. It is disconnection. And here's the thing. You may not even notice it at first, because disconnection often hides behind success. You're still performing, you're still producing, and you're still showing up. And the world claps for that. The world rewards the version of you that is polished, self-contained, reliable, and efficient. But deep inside, a part of you is quietly wondering, where did I go? Why doesn't this feel as good as I thought it would? Why does everything look fine and yet nothing feels alive? I want you to know that is not weakness or failure. That is your wisdom speaking. That is your body, your soul, your presence, all trying to get your attention. Not to shame you, but to be heard and to invite you back. And here is the real, rarely spoken truth. Most of us build our lives on values we never consciously chose. Let that land for a second. We absorb them from our families, from school, from society, from our industries, our mentors, our culture. Things like work hard, be responsible, stay productive, secure that job, don't be too emotional, say yes, keep going, be grateful. And those values got us here. They built careers, they built reputations, even wealth. But now, they are the very same values keeping us disconnected from ourselves. Because what got you here might not be what brings you home. And the longer you keep performing values that don't reflect your truth, the further away you feel from your joy, intuition, voice, and peace. So if you've been feeling that inner distance, that fog, that hollowness, please don't push it away. Don't try to outwork it, because what you're feeling, that is not failure. That's a sacred invitation for you to pause, to listen, and to ask yourself, what actually matters to me now? Because your life may be built on values that served your survival, but now your soul is asking to live, and that's where we go next. So let's talk about values, and not in the way most of us were taught. Not as a list of nice sounding words you slap on your website or talk about it in team meetings. Not the values you're supposed to have, but the ones your body actually recognizes as truth. Because here is something I really want you to hear, my friend. Your real values aren't intellectual. They're embodied. They live in your nervous system. They show up as ease or tension, safety or dissonance. They're either present or something in you quietly starts shutting down. You know what I mean? There are times when you're doing something simple, having a conversation, writing, working, spending time with someone, and you just feel it. I am here. I am connected. I'm present. This is real. That's alignment. That's a moment of living your values. And then there are other times, maybe in a high-staking meeting, or when you say yes to something that felt like no in your gut, when something inside you immediately goes still or tight or blank. That's disconnection, misalignment. That's your body telling you, this is not true for me. And I want you to know that information is sacred. It is not a problem to fix. It is a signal for you to follow. Because your real values are not ideas. They're not what you think you should care about. They're what your body, your soul, your deeper self already knows to be essential for your wholeness. Let me give you an example. You might say you value success, but what your soul really craves is simplicity. Or you might believe your value is being needed, but what you're really longing for is freedom. You might have been raised to value being right, but your spirit is asking for humility and wonder. And here's where it gets profound. When your outer life doesn't reflect your inner values, your presence starts to disappear. You become less you. Not because you're trying to be fake, but because your nervous system has learned to survive by performing values that aren't true for you. That's why this work matters. This isn't about personal development. It's about personal remembrance. It's about coming back to what has always been yours before the world told you you had to be. And here's what I know to be true. When your values and your presence say the same thing, people feel you and you feel yourself. That's when peace returns. That's when clarity becomes natural. That's when decisions get easier because you're no longer negotiating with your own soul. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what honors me? So before we move into tools, just take a breath and let that truth sink in. Your values are not decorations, my friend. They're the bones of your belonging. They're the blueprint of your most present, powerful self. And if you've been disconnected, you don't need to work harder. You don't need to hustle your way into peace. You just need to come back into relationship with what you actually value now. Not what you were taught, not what helped you survive, but what helps you feel alive. I'm going to walk you through a few gentle practical tools to begin this return. So now that we've explored the root of the disconnection, now that you can see how values that aren't truly yours create distance from your presence, let's talk about how you start to come home. And I want to be really honest here. This is not about waking up one morning and burning everything down. This is not about making massive, sweeping changes to prove to yourself that you've finally aligned. This work is subtler than that. It is slower than that. It is more powerful than that. Because coming back into alignment isn't a performance. It is a process of remembering and then choosing over and over and over again to let your truth lead. And remember, you didn't get where you are today overnight. It took years. So to go to where you want to go, it is also going to take some time. And it all depends on your dedication. So let me offer you gentle, practical tools that I use in my own life and with my clients to help bring values and presence back into realignment. You don't need to use them all. Start where you are and what feels true to you. Listen to what resonates and let this be a conversation with yourself. Tool number 1, the values reflection. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes this week, somewhere quiet with a notebook or a voice note or a walk in nature. Ask yourself, when in the past year did I feel deeply aligned? Not just happy, but present, settled, fully myself. What values were alive in those moments? Maybe it was honesty, spaciousness, purpose, creative flow, stillness, integrity, intuition. Then ask yourself, when did I feel most disconnected? What was missing in those moments? Was it rest? Was it truth? Was it freedom to speak? Was it being witnessed in your real emotion? Let this be real honest. You don't have to fix anything yet. Just notice the pattern and be radically honest with yourself, because your lived experience is already telling you what matters most. You don't need to invent your values. They're already there, just waiting for you to reclaim them. Tool number 2, the daily alignment check-in. This is a simple yet powerful practice that takes 3 minutes, and it changes everything over time if you do it consistently. At the end of each day, ask yourself, where was I in alignment with my values today? Where did I drift from them, and why? What would honoring my values look like tomorrow? Again, this is not about self-criticism, but it's about self-trust. It's about becoming someone who checks in, not to judge, but to listen. This is how we recalibrate presence in real time. This is how we turn our values into daily lived experiences, not just big ideas. So over time, if you do this regularly, it'll create clarity. It becomes easier to say no. It becomes easier for you to pick up your patterns. Then it becomes easier for you to speak up. Easier to choose the thing that feels aligned, even if it's not the most convenient. Because you're no longer abandoning yourself in the name of keeping the peace or satisfying other people's values. Tool number 3, the sacred no. This one is real tender, and also it's everything. Sometimes coming back to your values means telling the truth about what no longer fits, about what you've outgrown, about where you've been silently betraying yourself. Where are you saying yes when your body is saying no? What are you holding on to because it is familiar, even though it is no longer aligned? Maybe it is a role, a relationship, an outdated identity. Maybe it is the pressure to be a certain kind of leader or a certain version of put together. Can you let something go, even just in your heart, to make space for what is real? The sacred no doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like, I don't think that's aligned for me anymore, or I am allowed to change. It is not a rejection of your past, my friend. It is an honoring of who you're becoming, and it is a journey. Here is the truth. Every time you say no to what isn't aligned, you say yes to your own presence. And that is a radical act of self-leadership and self-love. So I want you to take your time with this work. These tools aren't here to fix you. They're here to bring you home to yourself, to your body, to your values. And the more you listen, the more you'll notice that alignment isn't the place you arrive. It is simply a relationship with yourself. And the more often you return to yourself, the more natural it feels to live from the inside out. And that, my friend, is where everything changes. So let's take a breath together, right here, right now. Inhale with me and exhale. You've just taken yourself into a space most people avoid. A space where truth lives. A space where clarity isn't forced. It just rises when you get quiet enough to listen. If you've been feeling disconnected, if your life, your leadership, your presence has felt a little like someone else's, I want you to hear me clearly. You're not broken. You're not behind. And you don't need to rebuild everything. You're simply being asked to return to your values, to your body, to your truth. Not the truth that was handed to you, not the version that got applause, but the one that lives underneath all of it, your truth. The real reason you feel disconnected isn't because you're ungrateful. It is because you're awakening. And that's holy. That's where alignment begins. And the beautiful thing, it doesn't require you to have all the answers right now. It just asks you to listen, to notice, and to respond gently where something in you whispers, that is not for me anymore. So take these tools into your life in whatever way feels honest. Don't turn this into another self-improvement project. Let this be a remembering. Let this be love. the love you have for yourself. And if you'd like support, if you want to walk this path with someone who sees you, who honors the fullness of who you are and who you are becoming, I'd be honored to hold space for that. You can DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or go to my website at www.sageinyou.com. SAGEINYOU. No pressure, no pitch, just a quiet conversation, an opening, a return. You're not lost. You're being called home. And every time you say yes to what is true, you take another step closer to yourself. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being courageous enough to listen. I'll meet you next time, a little deeper, a little softer, and always a little closer to home. Peace out. Now let's get the legal stuff out of the way. Midlife Alabahare is a personal podcast. All content is provided strictly for general information, education, and entertainment purposes. Any views or opinions represented in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with professionally or personally, unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual. Any use of the information from this podcast or material linked to it, whether to the podcast or website, is undertaken at the user's own discretion and risk. It is not intended to serve as a replacement for guidance from a qualified expert, nor is it meant for diagnosis or treatment. Thank you for supporting my podcast.